Welcome to another edition of OdooSME video. My name is Dari Matt Obel. Today I'm going to show you how to make payments for goods and services directly out of a bank account. Normally, most companies will use their bank accounts for settling suppliers, vendors, and rarely will they pay for something directly, whether they be goods or services, from bank accounts. But occasionally there may be a need to just go to the bank, withdraw some cash, and then go directly to pay for that particular service or goods with the money that has been drawn from the bank. Or it may be the case that you just write out a check for a vendor. I say vendor, but the vendor is not necessarily maintained as a vendor in the system. Nevertheless, you want to give such a person a check directly for goods and services that have been purchased from them. So OdooSME allows us to do just that. We can make payments without necessarily attaching a vendor or a supplier to the transaction. So let's just dive right inside. So I'll go to the accounting module, and then from the dashboard you will see several journals. The first set of bank journals, cash journals are all listed. So let's say we want to do a transaction out of Zenith Bank. So what I'm going to do is go to this Zenith Bank section of the dashboard, click on that button. I want to record a new transaction. So click on this link. It then gives us this form. If you are familiar with this form, you will see that this is now similar to the same form when we were making transactions out of petty cash. So I can start by entering a memorable reference for this transaction, something that will allow me to remember what this transaction is all about. And it can be anything. For example, I could say ZEN001. The whole idea is just to put something here for reference number. So you can see the journal will try to use Zenith Bank. That's the date of the transaction. Obviously, it defaults to a current date. If you don't like this date, then you can change it. Just click in this field and choose the exact date of the transaction. But we will use today's date for this transaction. And then on the transaction lines, we can start to enter items. Each transaction, even though this is a form, each transaction can then be booked with its own specific date. So we start with that date. We can enter a specific reference for this particular line. So let's say I got, for example, an invoice from the supplier after I purchased that product or that service. So let's say the supplier is WHM and I got an invoice of, let's say, 002 from that supplier. Now I'm not going to choose partner because the whole idea is that that supplier is probably not maintained in the system. So let's go to the memo field now and say purchase of 32 units of office lights. Okay, so we purchased some lights. We purchased some lights for the office. In the amount column or in the amount field, when we are making payments out, then they should be recorded as negative. So I'm going to put negative 32, or let's say 35 35,000 to show that what I purchased is something of a value of 35,000. Now, if this transaction is in the company currency, so my company currency in this database is the Naira. So if this transaction or this particular purchase is in Naira, then I don't need to enter any figure for amount currency. I also don't need to select the currency. But if, for example, this has to do with some purchase of goods or services in another currency, in a currency different from the default company currency, then this purchase was in dollars, and this 35,000 naira was, for example, equivalent to $70, meaning that the exchange rate is 500. So what I'll do here is enter $70 as other currencies. Okay, $70 as other currencies, and then choose the USD. So what I've done basically is try to book this amount in Naira, but also specified the amount in dollars so that I can track the dollar equivalent amount corresponding to this particular purchase. So I'm doing it in Naira, so I don't need these fields, so I'm going to take them out. Okay, so I have one line item here, and I think that's sufficient for the demo that we want to do. What I'm going to do next is to save this transaction. So I'm going to save this transaction. So you can see Zen 001 allows me to be able to track the entry. So it's saved with the name of this first line. Remember, it was the reference number or the reference field. So it's now saved with that reference field. So it allows me to use that reference field to search for this transaction. So what do we do next? Well, I have recorded this transaction in my bank book, but I have not linked it yet into any account in the general ledger. Okay, you will see that because I've used the bank journal, so the system already knows where this 35,000 is going to come out from, which is the credit. But where is it going to debit? Where will this purchase be debited to, so that we can capture the cost in the general ledger? The way to do that very easily is, once you save this transaction, you will then click on Reconcile. This Reconcile button appears, and then it's the next action to take, so we click on Reconcile. So in the reconciliation form, you are prompted with select a partner or choose a counterpart. So if there was a partner, I could easily select the partner. So remember, we decided we're not going to use a partner for this transaction. A partner, in this case, a vendor. So we're not buying from a vendor that is registered in the system. As we mentioned in another video, the system is waiting for us to reconcile the entries, book this transaction into the GL. The way to do that is go to that field called account and select the account in the GL that you want to post this transaction. So obviously this is an expense account. We can see the narration of this transaction: purchase of 32 units of office light. So this field allows me to select an account in the GL that I want to post this particular transaction. In this case, this looks like office consumables. Office consumables. So I have an account here called office consumables. I think that was duplicated, but well, it doesn't matter. So let me just choose one of that. So as soon as I choose office consumables, then it matches the 35,000 with my entry that was already booked to Zenith Bank account. So now the system knows where the debit entry is going to, and as long as the debits match the credit, then this reconcile button will show. So I'm going to click on reconcile, and then voila, that transaction is reconciled. Of course, you can go to your journal entries and see exactly how the journals will appear in your general ledger. So that was the Zen 001. So if I call it up, so you can see now it debits account 212307, which is office consumables, and then it credits 101402, which is Zenith Bank, and that's exactly what we want. Based on this entry, your profit and loss account will be automatically updated with this 35,000, and then your balance sheet will also be updated with the 35,000 that is coming out of Zenith Bank. Right, let's look at another example very quickly. In this second example, what I want to do, so I'm going to go back to our dashboard, is I will take some money from Zenith Bank and then try to use it to pay for multiple transactions. So let's go back to the same, let's do the same process. I go to this link, and then I click on transaction, new transaction. So here maybe the reference is Zen 002 if I want, and here I'm going to say the reference here will be probably, it doesn't matter, as WHM 002 if you have, you know, a receipt, or you just, and it's not compulsory that I put a reference number. It's just for me to remember what this transaction is all about. Like I said earlier on, we don't need to select the partner, and in this memo field I can just say cash withdrawn for several items, okay, and the amount will be negative because I'm withdrawing money, and I'm going to put 50,000. Right, so let's save that and then try to reconcile. So what we'll try to do is spend this 50,000 for 3 different transactions, and the way to do that is I will select the first account, which is probably office consumables, and let's say for this office consumables I bought 30 electric bulbs, and they cost me 12,000. So you will see that the 12,000 is booked for 30 electric bulbs, and then there's still a difference of 38,000 shown in gray, so I will still have that red warning. So if I'm happy with that, of course you want to add another entry. Okay, so I'm going to add another entry. In this case, that entry will be payment for flight tickets. So I say flight tickets. So let me change the text to flight tickets to Abuja. And let's say for the sake of emphasis that this is 25,000. So I still have a balance of 13,000. So I have a balance of 13,000 before I can have the total debits matching the total credits. So I can either click here to say choose a counterpart or do a new operation. So I will use new operation this time around, okay, to do that last balance. So for this last entry, let's assume that I paid for levies. So I'll take that to government rates and levies, and I'll say levies to Ikeja LGA. Okay, so you can see that if I save this, the total debits now match with the total credits. And OdooSME is happy and now prompting me to reconcile. You will only see that button once your total debits match your total credits. So let's click on reconcile. So that transaction is now reconciled. If we go back to our journal entries, take out that filter, and then that's that second one. So you can see clearly that there is a debit to government rates and levies, and that's the description. Another debit to flight tickets, a debit to consumables, and then the credit that went out of the Zenith bank account. So my debits and my credits are balanced. As you can see, even though we took money from the bank, we didn't need to book these payments to a particular vendor. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you have any question regarding this video or any other video in our series, please visit our website at www.odoosme.com and click on that chat widget. If any member of our support team is online, they will be happy to take any of your questions. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next video.